We just have to work hard.
So how do we think that the stereotypes surrounding the physically disabled affect the way non-disabled people see pursuing disabled people as sexual partners?
I think there's a lot of exotification of disability in some circles. Like, not necessarily in my experience, but in other experiences I've heard of, it's like, oh, you're deaf? That's kind of hot. I don't know. Like, it's a little weird. Like, my best friend from home was like, yeah, a bunch of people were like turned on by the fact that like she was deaf. I don't know. It's weird.
I think also to tie it into like not heteronarrative, just talking about like bodies that like maybe aren't read. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I guess just like this fascination with like what's under your clothes and what do your genitals look like, and that kind of transferring on to like people who are disabled or whatever else, and just kind of like, I mean, maybe that's what you were speaking of when you're talking about exotification, but thinking, particularly about genitals, I think that that's playing where people are like, well, if your body is maybe different than my body, like, I don't know what your body is like between your legs, so like maybe that affects whether or not, I want to touch you or be touched by you, or like I'm curious, or, what if I like explore that and then like maybe like your body is different than like any other body that I've seen, like what if, whatever else, and I think that, it's just like really, I don't know. I mean, again, people's preferences are so real, but also again, like so like what I guess what I mean to say is that like, people's preferences about like what's in somebody's pants, those are very real, but also to be like, gauging like that by like what somebody may or may not be able to like either perform or like thinking about like, I don't know, external genitals.
Yeah, I think that was actually a really good point. I think that like a prejudice against like just people with disabilities or like ableism is one of like as a prejudice that like so rarely gets checked. Like particularly when it comes to like sort of like choosing a sexual partner, like it's something that people like just privilege themselves of having, like they don't have to question it within themselves, like why would I not consider like a person in a wheelchair, a person who uses canes to get around, like, or anyone else for that matter, like a viable sexual partner. Like no one is asked to ever like stop and say why, in the same way that they're like, why wouldn't I consider dating a poor person or a black person or an Asian person, like, and like I feel like even in the points where disability is fetishized, like it's fetishized in a way that is grotesque, like, yeah. I've definitely been in situations where I felt like partners were like embarrassed to be with me when I was limping, or when I, or like embarrassed about the fact that I might need extra help doing things, or, upset about the fact that I don't carry things, or like feeling like somehow slighted, like I should be able to just get around it, Yeah, and I think like that really affects the way that, or at least I, as a physically disabled person, like see myself as a sexual being, like I do feel like extra self-conscious and like somewhat non-sexual when on the days that I have to use a cane, like, and I think that that's like one of the like saddest and most fucked up parts about being disabled.
Yeah, I agree with that because, when I first came to Hampshire and first got into this relationship and previous ones too, it's always a question in my mind, like, how could this person be attracted to me? Because I have that ingrained stigma that my physical impairments are innately unattractive. Sometimes I will see myself in a mirror, like, walking, and I'll be like, how is that attractive, for someone else? But, we don't need to really explain that because people are attracted, and it's not really about limitations. But still, you can't, get over that stigma in ourselves,
I think part of it also ties back into taboo, like you were talking about, and also, saying like that, assisted technologies and stuff like that, that also to some degree requires that you are really aware of like what you want to feel, or like know how to articulate your desire or whatever else, but also, just thinking about like stuff being a turn off rather than a turn on, like, damn, okay, so you have a cane, so that could be a little bit of fun too, like, doesn't mean like you can't play within the realm of like your own personal abilities. And I think again that just speaks to taboo and people having to really work through like feeling comfortable with their desires and feeling like they want to be vulnerable to articulate them, or like maybe willing to try something that might not work and just to go there and experience that. So I think a lot of that's about fear, I think, across all parties.
I like the way you walk. Makes your ass look good.
There you go. I think, and we sort of just say, we're talking about physical limitations and attraction. I think growing up for me, I remember being, middle school, early high school age. And the big thing I remember is drooling. It seems to be a universal thing of disgust and repulsion. And it's something that can't be helped. But where does that fit into the realm of my disability? And it's interesting just to think about that. Yeah.
I also recognize that like so many people have never had to be in contact with a person with a physical disability, or have like gone their whole lives like choosing to never be around like people with physical disabilities. Yeah.
It's really something you don't think about until it affects you. Like as an able-bodied person, when I came to Hampshire, like the people I met here were the first disabled people besides like my best friend who was deaf, but that's not that's not like a mobility issue. It's like the issue of mobility and accessibility was really like quite a surprise to me because I'd never thought about it before I made friends who were disabled. And then I started thinking about it all the time because it's like, oh my gosh, are my friends going to be able to make it to Saga or to like the cafeteria because of the snow? Are my friends going to be able to like, and now it's like, is my partner going to be able to get to class without falling and like breaking your butt? I don't know.
I think it's something that people like choose not to